Welcome to the Rails member update. Glad to see everybody out there virtually. I have to tell you, it's very exciting to be here in Coal Valley because the room is full of actual people. So anyway, yes, thank you very much for joining us today. We haven't had an update in a long time. I'm not really sure why, but anyway, there's a lot on the agenda today. And then there's also lunch. So that's, very exciting. We have 213 people signed up today. So which is, great, not anywhere near our records from, during the pandemic when we were up near, I think 600 one time.
Yeah, more.
Yeah. But anyway, that I just tell you that because it just to remind you, it's complicated when we got people in the room, on Zoom, etc. But we want, we have a lot of information to give you, but we also know you will have questions and comments, and we will get to them all eventually. Maybe not today, but hopefully today. And we are asking that you put them in the chat, not in the Q&A. And I think we've even disabled the Q&A because that way we only have to look in one place and follow one place. Those of you in the room just get to raise your hand and ask a question. So anyway, I think that's all I needed to tell you at the beginning. So I think we'll just get started. And our first item is update on new and proposed legislation. And we're going to start off with Greg McCormick. Thank you very much, Greg, for joining us to talk about the procedures for filling the public library trustee vacancies.
Sure, thank you. So for those, I think most people have followed it, but I was asked to speak about Public Act 1020977. In this past spring, the General Assembly took action to modify library law, and part of which requires the involvement of the Secretary of State in his capacity as state librarian. There were three different sections modified. It did modify one section of the Local Library Act and then two sections within the Public Library District Act of 1991. Regarding the Local Library Act and vacancies of trustees, the term forthwith, which had been in there probably since the inception of that law, was modified to indicate that vacancies should be filled within 90 days after a vacancy is declared, and no further modification to the Illinois Local Library Act occurred. Regarding the Public Library District Act, there were two sections modified, one being the organization of the board, by which a majority vote of the board could appoint and then fix the compensation of a qualified treasurer that is also not to be considered a member of the board. So in effect, the board remains with the same number of elected individuals, but the treasurer is hired separately and acts in that capacity on behalf of the board. Regarding vacancies of trustees, in this case, again, forthwith was modified to indicate that a vacancy should be filled within 90 days after its occurrence. And then further language was added that if the trustees fail to appoint an individual to fill that vacancy within 90 days, the state librarian shall appoint someone to fill that vacancy within the ensuing 60 days. If the state librarian fails to fill the vacancy shall be filled at the next regularly scheduled election. So that's really quite a significant change in the role of the state librarian, other than, when we were collecting reports of vacancies from public library districts, and then if they were filled, and that is separate from what is to be done with the public library annual report. With the passage of that legislation, which was effective at the end of May, and in consultation with the Secretary's General Counsel's office, our department initiated a process to implement fulfilling the requirements of the law, whereby at that time notice was given to public libraries where vacancies had been reported to us. We initiated a process where, after the 90-day time frame, a public notice was placed in newspapers of local distribution in close proximity to the district itself, indicating that we were accepting letters of interest to be given, to our office within 10 days after the last publication. Questions were developed to be posed to those interested in the appointment, and then ultimately the process could lead to selection and an appointment to the library district board. When notices were circulated to libraries, the library districts initially, by and far, the majority of the boards had taken immediate action to fill those vacancies. We were left where we ended up in the first round, at least, only publishing 5 notices in local newspapers, and we only had responses to 1 of those notices. Right now, we are monitoring what appears to be 10 public library districts that have reported vacancies to our office that have occurred since June 1, and where we have no reported action of the boards filling those vacancies yet. At this point, the legislation is still in effect, and this is certainly new to all of us, but we will continue to monitor that situation with those local districts and move forward with notices if that is required. In most instances, that 90-day period is not over yet. So that's what we have on the general process of this. So.
Thank you, Greg. Anybody have any questions out there or in here? Okay. Thank you, Greg.
I think there's a question, when is the vacancy officially declared? It's really declared by the board. And it's not, I don't know that it's necessarily in their next board meeting after they receive a letter. It depends on what they've determined, or is it the date of the resignation of the individual?
Well, it's all brand new.
Yes.
So we're, figuring it out. Could be either, is Gina's asking, and
yeah, I
how
think
does
it's
the
going to
state
be
library
based
go?
upon what is determining the reason for the vacancy. Obviously, some, I think board members are resigning as of an effective date, and some of it may be immediate, depending upon the circumstances.
So there's a question about the state library helping districts who can't find local citizens that are interested in filling vacancies, which I don't think that's not part of this, right?
Certainly not. And we're certainly aware that that is a challenge, as we have been communicating with districts on, finding people who are interested. I think because this role is new, we'll have to be thinking about that as I think we work with both library systems on their efforts on, the public library trustee issues in our state. Because it is problematic. It's not only, as we know, it's not only problematic for the public library districts, but it's also a challenge right now for those libraries who are governed by the Illinois Local Library Act as well. How would the state librarian go about confirming an individual is qualified to sit on the board? We have a series of questions that have been vetted, and I think we shared some of that information already with the Rails board that has been made public. And ultimately, we do feel that those questions do lead to a qualified candidate to fill that position. And much of it has to be based upon what is stated in law with, certainly their interpretation. So vacancies have been filled by the state librarian yet. Well, there is one vacancy that the state librarian did appoint, but that is now in a court of law, and I really can't comment on that at this point. When can we see the questions? I could probably send the questions to.
We can post them, Greg.
Yeah. What's that?
We could post them also if that's.
Okay. Yeah.
If that's, yeah, we can. Yeah. Any more questions? This is, brand new, it's ongoing, we're still figuring it out. So thank you for updating us.
Sure.
Okay, well, you're welcome to stay, Greg. And I think we know that you have something else that you have to do, which is.
Yeah, I'm going to stay through the legislative piece, and then I will probably be departing. So thank you.
All right, great. Thank you. So, we're going to now some other legislative issues or matters. The first is an update on the statewide access to online resources proposal that Rails put together a few years ago now. This proposal would be for new money where there's no particular set amount at this point. We recommend between $3 to $5 million of new money that probably would be a part of the state library budget. And this would fund a group of databases, online resources, pardon me, I'm trying not to use that librarian database word. This would fund, this be new money that would fund online resources that would be available to all Illinois libraries. So this, for those of you who haven't heard about this before, this is a program that is in place in 48 other states. And it has been in place for many years in some of our neighboring states, Indiana, Michigan, Wisconsin, Ohio. The only other state that doesn't do it at this point is Colorado, and they used to do it. We don't know why they aren't doing it anymore, but it has been very successful. And it obviously, we spend millions, perhaps hundreds of millions, but many millions of dollars individually on online resources annually. this, and there are those of us, the libraries, who cannot afford to spend any money on online resources. So this program would help everybody, because the libraries that are spending it, and in duplication, we are spending these tax dollars over and over and over again on the same thing, would help those libraries. And for the libraries that don't have anything, any online resources, any money for online resources, it would help them too, obviously. So we presented this to the Public Policy Committee, and they voted it at ILA's Public Policy Committee, this through the legislative process. This is how we do it. And they voted it as their top priority, along with a couple others, which you'll hear about another one. And also, we then were invited by the ILA board to go to their executive board meeting last week or the week before to answer some questions from them. So I think they are now in the process of voting. So we don't have any specific, online resources that we have already identified. I mean, we did a survey a few years ago, maybe 4 years ago, to get a sense of what people would want. But the whole point of this is to get the money in place. And then the way the process works in other states is that a committee would be formed, a group, to develop an RFP and to identify through surveys, et cetera, what exactly the resources would be that would be the most beneficial. So at this point, we're just looking for the money. We don't have specifics because we just can't until we get to that point. Any questions about that? About where we are with that now? I'm very hopeful this year. Maybe it will be a retirement gift. That would be nice. That was a joke. But, what's the likely timeline? Emily wants to know. Well, it kind of depends on how it works, but I'll just say if it went into the secretary's budget, that would be that's being worked on now. Of course, we're getting a new Secretary of State, as everybody knows. So it would just appear in the budget magically, not magically, through hard work. Next spring, and then it will take a while. We're not going to poof, wave a magic wand and have this all in place. It would take some time. The process would take some time, obviously, to get it all set up. But this is this is not an innovative idea. This is it has been in place and is very well used, and you can go and look at I think it's called Badger Link in Wisconsin. It's called Inspire. That will be probably the most difficult thing, is finding the name. So we'll have to have Lincoln or something, right? So is there anything you would like to say about this, Greg?
I think it's premature. I mean, we are beginning the budgeting process, and certainly the new administration, whoever is elected, this will be how they will put this in place. As far as timing, at best, this would be an FY24 budget initiative, meaning after July 1. And then depending upon the amount of revenue gained the first or allocated the first year, and what could go through a bidding process, because it would have to, regardless of what local government this or state government unit this fell under, we would see when you would actually see the availability of the resources, because that would be something any party would have to address.
Right. So don't hold your breath, but I think we're progressing, and this is good. So I think it's become very clear that this is really important to the school libraries, and they've been very vocal about that. And as we all know, they have plenty of other issues that are affecting them, but certainly financial is chief amongst them. Are there legislators ready to introduce this bill? Jennifer Cottrell wants to know, or aren't we at that point yet? I think, Jennifer, we're not at that point yet, because if it's in the budget, we will obviously need legislative support, but we wouldn't necessarily need, I don't think, to go that route. So that would be better, obviously. Any other questions about that right now? Okay, well, stay tuned. We'll keep you informed as things progress. There's a PPC meeting next week, and we may hear more then about how the ILA board voted. I'm going to ask Monica to talk now, I think, about the Local Records Act, if you don't mind, since that's another pending thing, and then we'll go into the things that are already in place.
Sure.
Okay.
That's great. So I know many of you are very familiar with records retention in Illinois. Rails gets a lot of questions about records retention. I'm sure Heartland does as well. It's a very popular topic at Directors University. But the fact remains that in many ways, people have a very hard time understanding how long they should keep records and how they should dispose of them, particularly electronic records. So the Local Records Act, which is 501 ILCS 205, was originally enacted in 1962. And that's the one that we know that does involve the preservation and disposal of public records for all units of government in Illinois. So the proposal that's being considered by PPC and the ILA Executive Board would involve an amendment to the Local Records Act that would allow the records management section of the Illinois State Archives to set a general schedule for public libraries that would essentially say when different types of records automatically expire, at which point you would be able to take them out rather than to have to apply for a disposal certificate. That has
Lots of murmuring. Happy murmuring.
That process has been in place since January of 2005 in the state of Michigan, but there are similar processes in neighboring states like Michigan, Indiana, Wisconsin that all allow for a more modern solution that does not require that disposal piece. So this is also another initiative that is being discussed by the ILA Executive Board, and we should hear more at PPC about whether or not there's interest in moving that forward. But we do believe that this would have very little cost associated with it and would save a lot of time and money on behalf of librarians.
There's a lot of like all caps. I have to give kudos to Monica and also Paul Mills for coming up with this this proposal that when you hear about it, it's like, duh, right? Why didn't we think of this sooner? So, and I think this might be of interest to more than just libraries.
Yes.
Because I think that's a really good, that will help it's moving up forward, I think. So, any questions? You're all stunned into complete silence. Yep, yeah. Miracle talk. Annie Miskevich says. Okay, great. And Natalie, thank you, Natalie. Natalie Starasa from Michigan says, I can't tell you how much easier that process is.
Yeah,
So.
Natalie, I'm also from Michigan and also had that process previous to coming to Illinois in 2007. I agree, it's much easier.
All right, well, we'll keep you informed about that one too, obviously. Okay, then I want to turn to the expansion of the Cards for Kids Act that was enacted this past July, I think. That is Public Act 1020843. And I'm interested in hearing from all of you what, if you've adopted this, how are you dealing with it? And also, which boards are considering or have voted to provide library cards at no cost to unserved residents? Because remember, this is not a mandate, this is a local choice. So I'm curious, does anybody have anything they want to? Yes. So, okay, Emily said DeKalb did. Do you want to speak to it or? No, okay, but it's, okay, so
It's more in the chat as well.
we're in the chat. A lot, looks like a lot of libraries have done it. I wanted to also tell you while you're responding that at our last Universal Service Committee meeting, which is a Rails board committee, one of the topics was the fact that we know that this, despite the fact that we are firmly convinced that this is obviously a very good thing for the education of children, et cetera, and unserved residents who are unserved through no fault of their own, et cetera. But we do realize that it is yet another, can be a burden on the existing libraries that are doing this. And it's, and talking about if there was a way of identifying additional financial resources. And one of the ideas suggested came from one of our committee members, Catherine Yanukovsky, and she had done some research that she was working in Joliet at the time, that the Joliet Township had a responsibility to supply funds to the community toward a family educational resource. So we had a long discussion about that potentially there might be some way to work with townships on this. So Rails is going to look into that. And Greg McCormick was at that meeting also, and he was talking about that a municipality does not offer library services can have an intergovernmental agreement with the library to have their, to have their population have access. There was discussion of a mathematical formula that could be created to determine the cost of the unserved in a community. So a standard dollar amount for need could be established. So there, yes.
Oh, I just wanted, I don't want to interrupt
No.
what you're saying, but because library that I am from, we at this time have decided not to go with the expansion of it. And a reasoning behind it was the idea that our biggest concern was the children 18 and under who did have need, and that first Cards for Kids Act kind of covered that for us. And we wanted to take some time before we went to the next level to decide whether or not to expand it, because our biggest concern were those that were the most in need, and we felt like that was dealt in that way, and then they wanted to think about it more. So didn't mean to interrupt, but I didn't know.
No, and this is exactly why it's not a mandate, because we gave local boards, local libraries the credit of wanting knowledge of their communities and doing the right thing when they could. So yeah, that's very interesting. I'm trying to see. Alyssa takes away the need for intergovernmental agreements with schools. Well, I suppose that is a possible unexpected consequence. So anyway, it looks like libraries are adopting this, and let's see, Mindy Long. I don't know where are you from, Mindy? Let's see, just worked with one of our county schools, and they have 400 students, and they just signed up over 300 this month. So,
Wow.
yeah. And let's see, Kate says she's working on an IGA with the Northbrook schools. Oh, Mindy's, oh yeah, that's right, from Ida in Belvedere, right? So, well, if you want to just, put in the chat as we go on, what you are doing, that's great. We can share that information out. I think that would be very useful. Any questions? Okay, then I think we will now move over to Joe, who's going to talk about the Decennial Committees on Local Government Efficiency Act. There, I said that.
Clearly the most thrilling item on our agenda, so it's my privilege to speak to you all about this. Yes, Decennial Committees on Local Government Efficiency Act, and good morning, it's good to be with you all. So this is Public Act 102-1088, which went into effect, I guess it would have been just this past June. I want to highlight two resources that are out there just so that you are aware. If you didn't see in our e-news, I want to say maybe 3-4 weeks ago, we did have Ansel Goink, law firm that we work with a lot, created an FAQ for us that can be found on the library law and policies page on the Rails website. So I'd invite you to look at that. And also, if you go to the Illinois Municipal League website, they also have a page devoted to fact sheets, and you will find there is also one for this particular legislation. So just as a reminder, or if you haven't heard of this, the charge of this legislation is really for units of local government to form a committee to study local efficiencies and create and file with the county a report with recommendations regarding efficiencies, increased accountability, et cetera. Focus when we're talking about sort of the library community is on library districts, as it specifies that this is really intended for units of local government by definition, which by definition is a body, of course, that can levy a tax in the way the library districts do. So in terms of like a timeline, we have within 1 year of the effective date of this act, which I mentioned was this past June, and at least once every 10 years thereafter, each government unit has to form this committee to study these local efficiencies and report to the county. The committee has to provide that report to the county no later than 18 months after the committee has been formed. And in terms of what we are studying, and I say we because speaking as a trustee, I'm going to get the pleasure of being involved with this as well. Studying things, examples, ordinances, rules, procedures, shared services, intergovernmental agreements, which we've talked about already, any relationships with other governmental units. Those are just some examples. There is not a lot of specificity in the legislation that tells us about what we are to study exactly. The FAQ that you can find on our website does talk a bit more about this and things like who should serve on the committee, the meeting requirements, et cetera. There is a sense that we could still see some additional guidance and additional details that would help inform how these committees would approach the work of putting together this report. And that may be partly why we still haven't seen a whole lot in the way of resources regarding this particular legislation. One thing we do know that our attorneys at Ansel Goink have been working on some kind of a template report that is intended specifically for their township clients. Once that is done, we can certainly explore with Ansel Goink the possibility of adapting that template for use by our member libraries. We know that having some kind of template report, something that would give us like a starting point. So when you form a committee would have something that you could use, wouldn't have to necessarily use fully, but to give you some ideas. So we are definitely interested in see that might be a helpful resource. We're also very willing, as always, to host some kind of a webinar learning opportunity around this topic. It really is just a matter of finding an individual or individuals who feel that they're capable of doing this. I've reached out to, among others, Illinois Municipal League, ILCMA, and others just to see whether there's something that they might be willing to do for us. At this point, I haven't found a willing and able individual or individuals, but that's something that we'll keep working on, because I know that the questions maybe are not so much about the law and what we're required to do, but actually how do we approach it, and if this is something that we're now required to do, how do we make it useful? Okay, so that I believe is what I wanted to share with you all. I'm happy to take questions that I likely can't answer. but
Well,
would help
Kate
inform. What did Kate say? Sounds like,
She has a
oh,
great idea, Joe, yeah.
yeah,
You're
she's
gonna
always full of
let
good
Laura
ideas.
take care of this first, and then we'll just follow your lead. There's a lot of
All
questions
right.
in the chat.
Okay.
And I don't know if you have the answers to all this, and I know Greg is still on, if he wants to, so we're wondering what, let's see, what, if the committee has no recommendations, what is the point of the legislation? A template would be, yep, go ahead.
Well, Megan, it'd be a really short report, which might be useful. I'm not sure what the effect would be of turning in a report that just doesn't have anything in it. Meg, as far as the point of the legislation, all I can say is what I've heard is that this was really aimed or focused at townships. But the way the legislation was crafted includes all units of local government. But again, that's just kind of what I had heard. Paul, yes, we do think that this kind of template report is maybe something that's going to be the most helpful, as well as some kind of webinar or some kind of event. And it might be whoever finishes it first. And Kate, I would say you would be the one I would normally think would just take care of this first and could present for us. But, we would look at bringing somebody in that maybe has gone through the process or has started it and are able to share sort of how they approached it.
Oh, there we go. Thank you, Kate. The link to the legislation, I think
Very
Dan
good.
posted there,
FAQ.
the act, right?
Yeah,
also.
102-10. Yes, and thank you for the. And Alyssa,
who does
that's a
it
good
get?
question. Would library districts in the same county need to work together on a report to the county board? So I will get the transcript of this and some of the questions that you all have, and certainly feel free to email any others that come to mind. And then especially if we do get to a point where we can work on some kind of template report and or a sort of more enhanced FAQ or some other sort of guidance, we'll try to answer as many of those questions as we are able to.
Yes, exactly. We will read the transcript carefully and get back to all of you. Outline responsibilities for each type of library. Do you have anything to add at this point about the village libraries, Joe? Is it the same for all types of?
Well, I know, if you look at the
local
FAQ, what Ansel Glink has said is that specifically municipalities and counties are exempt from this. But beyond that, I don't know that we've seen any other guidance that's kind of specific to some of these types of libraries that are mentioned.
And did you all see that Dan did post the FAQ in here as well? So you can look at that, and then we'll make sure all these questions get answered. Yes, thanks, Nicole.
Thanks, Nicole.
All right. Well, that appears to have brought us to the end of our legislative agenda item. I don't know, Greg, is there anything you want to add about anything that we've talked about so far before we move on?
No, I really don't.
Okay.
I can't get my camera to turn on now. Oh, well, we'll leave it alone. So I don't. Just everyone have a very good meeting, and it's been very informative so far. Enjoy.
Oh, thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
Okay. Great. So we're going to move on now to general Rails news, and we do have a lot of news because it's been a while and since we've all met and we've been very busy. So I'm going to turn to Monica. She's going to talk about the strategic plan.
Thank you. So we just wanted to give you an update on the strategic plan because it's been so long since we've had a member update that we wanted to let you know where we were. Emily, if you have the ability to share the strategic plan, or if someone wants to put the link to the strategic plan in the chat for those who are online, thank you very much. So this was passed by the Rails board on January 28th, 2022, after a process that began back in June of 2020. We really want to thank Rails members for all of your participation throughout the strategic planning process. There was a long series of surveys and focus groups and special meetings that we had in our membership meetings as well that were really important to being able to pass the strategic plan that we have today. So the plan is composed of a few different parts. The first thing that was new this year is the vision statement. So as I know, many of you know, a vision statement is meant as an inspirational statement. So it's something that's a desired long-term result of the organization's effects. And the vision statement that was passed as part of the strategic plan is thriving libraries are essential to all who live, learn, or work in Illinois. So that is what Rails is shooting for in everything that we do. The mission statement is a short statement of why the organization exists in the first place, what its overall goal is, and the goals of the operations. And our mission statement is we connect libraries. One of the things that the Rails board really thought was important was to have a mission statement that's so short that it could fit on a t-shirt. And so as part of our new Rails initiative this year, we were actually able to put that mission statement right on the back of the Rails t-shirt, and it fits. But what it has resulted in is an opportunity for everybody who works at Rails and every Rails member to really have a short, close understanding of what it is that Rails does. And that connection is really what's important. It's a connection in all things for resource sharing, but it's a connection to each other. And that's what member meetings like today are intended to do, is to learn from each other as well as to learn from Rails. So the plan is devised into 4 strategic goals, and then each of those goals has 3 to 4 specific objectives underneath the goals. I'm going to focus today just on the overarching strategic goals, but I encourage you to look at those objectives and also know that we report every month as part of the Rails report on initiatives related to each of these strategic goals. And then the annual report at the end of the year is also organized by the strategic goals and objectives so that you can really see the progress each year according to the goal. So if you have more interest in this than the very short time I'm going to spend on it today, please know that there's tons of resources out there that are available to you to check on, and I'm also happy to connect you with those. So the first strategic goal is based on resource sharing, and that's that Rails provides leadership in ensuring sustainable, equitable resource sharing for all member libraries. As an example of some of the things happening around those areas, our Rails deals and discounts group purchases. Our annual EBSCO database package group purchase now includes 161 libraries in public and schools and has surpassed $1 million this year, which is an increase of 70% over last year. So a lot of changes and increases happening there. Many of you know that there's been changes to the East Peoria area delivery routes that began on August 1st. Those changes were recommended by GeoMark, which many of you may know as LASA, that works from Southern Illinois University Edwardville, who evaluated our delivery operations and made recommendations for changes that would make our operation more efficient by reducing 4 routes. It will also save Rails an estimated $35,000 to $40,000 annually. Find More Illinois, which you're going to hear more about later, so I'm not going to talk about it a ton. It connects participating standalone and shared online catalogs, and our library patrons can quickly search all of those catalogs in a single search. For libraries that joined Find More before March 2023, all setup fees are waived. So it's another way that we're connecting back to that strategic goal number 1. Under strategic goal number 2, Rails models best practices in equity, diversity, accessibility, and inclusion. Another one that you're going to hear about a little bit later today is our EDI cohort, which is launching this fall. We're very excited about it, and I'm excited for Joe to tell you more about it later in the meeting. And then our last board election brought greater diversity to the Rails board, and the policy committee will meet next month to begin to discuss the board election process moving forward as well. Under strategic goal number 3, that's Rails assists member libraries in preparing for the future. As many of you know, the state libraries convened a meeting back in July of the Illinois State Library Advisory Council, otherwise known as ISLAC. That includes representatives from libraries throughout Illinois, including Rails Executive Director Deirdre Brennan, and we are grateful to be part of that process that's setting the course for libraries into the future. And then I hope many of you had the opportunity to attend Directors University 2.0. It was the first year that happened this year, and it was a huge success with 45 public library directors from across the state attending this very first Directors University 2.0 at the Illinois State Library from August 2nd through the 4th. Rails was one of the planning partners for that event, and it was made up of attendees that were previous participants in either Directors University or SPILME, and it was an intensive 3-day training that covered a wide range of subjects that focuses on continuing education for directors throughout their careers. Finally, is strategic goal number 4, and that is Rails leads alongside member libraries to develop and strengthen the Illinois library community and expand services to all. Under that goal, Rails has received the 2022 Robert R. McLaren Legislative Development Award in recognition of our advocacy for universal service and the expansion of the Cards for Kids Act that will be presented at ILA. And then we also want to make sure you're aware that the Rails staff meet monthly with representatives from the Association of Illinois School Library Educators, otherwise known as ISLE, Chicago Public Schools, Illinois Heartland Library System, Illinois Library Association, and the Illinois State Library to discuss ways we can work collaboratively to support school libraries. And out of that collaboration has come projects like our School Library Data Project, which you will hear later. So that's just a very brief overview of some of the things that are going on and how it relates to the strategic direction of Rails. But does anybody have any questions about anything you've seen? And let me see if I can check the chat. I don't see a lot yet. Thanks for putting that in the chat, Nikki.
Questions here or on Zoom? Thank you, Monica, for that great overview. And I think, we take very seriously the strategic plan very seriously. As you know, this is our 3rd one actually, and does not sit on the shelf. We do it, we implement, and a lot of what you're hearing in this member update is are examples of that. So, as Monica said, the link is in the chat. We're happy to talk about it anytime. We're really pleased with how it came out. We're, as you said, very grateful for all the input. But I guess we'll move on and just talk about what we're actually doing. That's part of the strategic plan. But feel free to ask questions also in the chat or later. So in support of the strategic plan, we were fortunate this year to be able to add some staff in order to do some of the things that our members want us to do, as you've heard a little bit already. But I just did want to tell you that we have on board now a data research specialist, Jeanette DeRucky, who's going to talk to you in a little bit about the school data project. We get, it's just amazing how many requests we get for data assistance. And so we're glad to have Jeanette working with Grant Halter now. We also are interviewing for a consortial services supervisor, a tongue twister. Find More Illinois is really growing by leaps and bounds, and it's going to grow even more. Particularly when we get the online catalog module going for libraries that don't currently have one. So we need, somebody who can, spend full time on that. Somebody to help us with more, telling you all what we're doing for you, and in ways that resonate with you. So we're hiring somebody else in another team member in communications. And then, as Monica was saying, our deals and discounts program is incredible how that has grown. It used to be at about $1.2 million in terms of the total money that was spent. It's now up to $2 million, and we save libraries, we figure, about $1 million annually. So this is some help for Layla in managing this, because we think it can and should get even bigger so that we can, proceed to save you guys even more money. Any questions about any of that? All right, then I'm going to turn this over to Mary Witt.
Hello, everyone. I just wanted to tell you briefly about a few of the things that we're going to be doing at the upcoming conferences. One of the huge things that we're going to be doing at ILA is we're going to have a big retirement party for Deirdre. That's going to be on Tuesday, October 18th from 5 to 7 p.m. And you can come at any time during those hours. There will be a little ceremony that starts at 5:30 if you want to catch that. It'll be in rooms 26 to 29 at the convention center, but you don't need to remember those rooms. Just listen for the sounds of a big fun party and kind of follow along. We do hope that everyone will come. There'll be appetizers. We'll have beer and wine, thanks to the support of our incredible sponsors. And all library staff from all types of libraries are invited. Trustees are invited. Anybody connected to an Illinois library is invited. We've actually had these parties at past ILA conventions. They've been hugely successful, great opportunity to network with people after a long day of conference going. So we hope you will all attend. All that we would ask you to do is to register on L2, and you can either go directly to L2 or you can find the link in our e-newsletter. We just want to get some idea of how many people are coming. But please come, bring your staff, bring your friends. We all want to celebrate Deirdre, although it's not a big celebration for us, but it is for her. So we want to bring her out in style. So, and did I say that it was free? That's probably the thing I should have said first. It is free again, thanks to our incredible sponsors. Just a couple of the other things we're doing. We're going to have a double exhibit booth at ILA. We're going to have demos about some of the services that you're hearing about today. There will be great giveaways. There will be opportunity to win prizes. So we hope that if you are attending ILA, that you come by and see us. Staff and board are also presenting programs at ILA. Jeanette, who you're going to meet in a few minutes, is doing a poster session. So we're really going to be involved there. We hope to see you all. And again, you can find all the details in our e-newsletter. The same is true for the ISLE conference. You can also find those details in our e-newsletter. We'll have an exhibit booth there. Those dates are November 3rd to 5th at the Tinley Park Convention Center. Though the exhibits are going to be one day this year, which we think is great. It really concentrates the activity. So Friday, November 4th is a day to visit us at the exhibits. Jeanette and Grant will be doing a program there, which I'm sure she'll tell you about. But I hope that if you're attending either or both of these conferences, that you stop by and see us and attend Deirdre's party. We'd love to see you. Are there any questions about any of that?
I would just say that parties are a very important way of connecting libraries.
When we've had, like, I think the last time, it was before COVID, obviously, but the last in-person party we had, I think there were about 200 people. So it's really a chance to, in addition to celebrating you, Deirdre, it's also a chance to network with colleagues in a relaxed environment. So it was really successful. People were jamming out into the halls at our last party. So I wasn't kidding when I said you can kind of follow the sounds and find us. It was really hugely successful. So I hope this one will be the same and that you'll all attend.
Thanks, Mary. Okay, so any questions from anybody about anything from the strategic plan to the parties? I would say no then. Okay. Well, you can always ask later if you want. So, okay, well, you already know you're going to be hearing from Jeanette DeRucky. So let me just say a little bit in the way of introduction about this project. We learned through ISLE, actually, Carolyn Kinsella, who is the executive secretary of ISLE, she got a message from a couple of library data people who are working on a national school library data project. And they contacted her, and then she contacted us in Heartland, and I think the state library as well, because they told Carolyn that there was some amount of missing data from in different various states for school libraries that they were trying to track down in this project, but that 50% of the missing data came from Illinois. Was 50% didn't come from Illinois, is what I'm trying to say. So we all talked and realized that there is a total, there's a huge gap in what the state library and the two library systems know about school libraries. And I mean, we've known that their situations have not been great for years now. I mean, their budgets are decreasing, the jobs are disappearing. We're losing them as system members because they don't have paid staff, and realize that this was only going to continue to get worse unless we could somehow get a good picture of what is actually going on out there or not going on. And in order to tell the story of how important school libraries are and how we don't have them in Illinois in the way that we should. So that's how this data project started. And I really think that it's going to be very important in helping the library systems and the state library understand the needs of school libraries, as well as help us be better advocates, all of us, including ISLE and ILA, for their needs. Because we're all in this together. If there aren't school librarians and school libraries, then kids show up at the public libraries and they don't know how to use the library. Maybe they don't even know they should come to the library. I mean, this is a very important problem that we face. And if we don't even know what the problem is, the extent of it, we can't solve it. So that's really why we got this started. And so Jeanette, without any further introductions or delay, welcome, and please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I have a little bit of a presentation for you today, just some slides to help you kind of get a better idea of what's going on with our project. Let's see, can everybody see it okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I'm so glad to be with you this morning. Thank you for having me. It's so nice to be all together. This is my first ever Rails member update, so I'm excited to be part of it. And I'm also excited to share the school library data project with you. So over the next 10 minutes, I'm just going to give you a brief overview. Dee already covered a little bit of that, so I'll touch on the slide project just a little bit. But I'm going to give you some background, the history of the project. I'll talk about the sources of data and information we're gathering regarding school libraries, as well as the areas of focus for this study. And I'm also going to discuss a little bit about what's next and the future of this project. So you might be wondering why we launched it now. Well, you're probably not wondering anymore. You now know. But if you're familiar with the slide project, according to their website, the main purpose of the project is to determine patterns in the continuing national decline in school librarian positions and how school districts decide to staff library, learning resources, and instructional technology programs for K through 12 students. So in order to do this, the team at Slide acquired comprehensive data about school libraries in all 50 states. And in the process of doing that, they noted a remarkable amount of data missing from Illinois, actually 50% of all the data, as was mentioned previously. So as a result, the Rails School Library Data Project was launched in January 2022. The mission of the project shown here aligns with the slide project in that it aims to use data to explore the status of public and private school libraries, their staff, finances, and material resources. It also endeavors to build a renewable data resource to ensure its availability in the future. You can see this further broken down into two main objectives. The first objective specifically targets the process of collecting data in order to locate school libraries, identify their staff, examine financial resources, and assess collections. The second states how the data will be used to create a sustainable data resource to be made available to the school, library, and education communities. So where is all the data coming from? Here I've listed the primary sources we've used to gather data for the project at the national, state, regional, and local levels. Unfortunately, there's no single data source that's going to give us comprehensive data about school libraries, so we always will need to collect it from multiple sources. Nationally, we're using the National Center for Education Statistics Common Core of Data, which is an open data resource about public and private schools, providing primarily district level data. Using this source, we were able to confirm the large data gap that the slide project found. And unfortunately, NCES lacks data from all the categories we're looking to study. And in some cases, the data is more than a year old. At the state level, there's two main data sources, the Illinois State Board of Education and the Illinois State Library. ISBE is a reliable source of school and district level data for variables like location, enrollment, demographics, and student achievement, but it lacks specific library and personnel data. The Illinois State Library is useful for providing data for school districts who've received their per capita grants, as well as those who have completed the annual library certification process. In 2022, 672 school districts received per capita grants. 774 schools and/or districts completed certification. That's 698 public school districts and 76 non-public schools. Library certification has been a primary source of recent data so far, because this year, for the first time, school libraries were asked to provide some additional information regarding their staff, budgets, and collections. Also through the state library, we have access to some location and staff data through L2, the statewide library directory and learning calendar. It's important to note that not all school libraries are represented there, and it also relies on members to keep that information current. Local level data from schools and districts has the best potential to provide the most detail, but it's also somewhat more restricted and time intensive to collect. District websites and staff directories are really helpful and easily accessible, but they can become outdated. They also fail to reflect vacancies, complex staffing situations. School librarians are the best source of data at this level, but as we all know, librarians are very busy and they have a lot of responsibilities. So that brings me to my next consideration, which is data accessibility. What I'm referring to here is how easy it is to gather the information. Part of the challenge is in determining its availability, who has it, and what's the process to obtain it. The other is the difficulty in acquiring it. I've mentioned several sources are open and freely available, but those are usually very high level, less detailed sources. To get the data we are looking for, we often need sources with a higher degree of difficulty. One method of collecting this data Rails is currently using is surveys. We actually just launched a school library staff survey this week, asking them to provide insights into their work. We've got, I think, over 1,100 responses to that survey just in 3 days, which is phenomenal. Thank you. So now you know where the data is coming from. I want to talk a little bit about how we're using it. This slide shows the three main categories in our areas of focus: the staff and finances and collections. Before I dive in, I want to point out that as a library organization, our aim is to get a clear picture of the status of school libraries in our state so that we can provide support and advocate for increased and equitable access to information and resources for all students. Our collection and application of data across these three categories reflects that. First and foremost, we're looking at locating schools with libraries and identifying their staff by title. Something that makes it difficult to examine school library workers is that in just about every district, they are called something different. In fact, we've already identified 330 unique position titles just through this project. We're interested in looking at their credentials, education, training. This includes formal and informal training related to the fields of education and library and information science, as well as any who have LIS endorsements and other certificates. This data can be used to inform professional development and training opportunities. We're looking at the populations they're serving. This can be based on locale, whether it's urban, rural, et cetera, region of the state, county, grade level, age, and other demographics. We're also comparing staffing by building and district size. Employment status is an important metric because it looks specifically at how libraries are being staffed. Many librarians are covering multiple buildings. Just in the survey that we've launched, we've already identified over 200 individuals who are doing just that. Many of them are also serving additional roles within their building. And as I said, we're seeing that as well. This leads me to the last point, which is the responsibilities. And so one main goal is to understand the extent to which librarians are working outside of the library. Next is finances. This is pretty straightforward and primarily consists of examining school and district level library budgets, what they cover, how they are determined, and the process school librarians undertake to request materials and resources. We know this varies widely by district, and we've only just begun to understand to what degree. We're also investigating school library funding sources. Ideally, school libraries receive district financial support, which is then supplemented. Grants are one source of additional funding. I've already mentioned the state's per capita grant, but there are additional grants out there as well. We're also exploring programs like book fairs and events that specifically provide materials and resources directly to the library. The third and final category is library collections. This includes physical and digital assets owned by the school library, any subscription services or memberships that increase access to content and the types of content they include, and how those resources are scoped based on student population. This connects back to the library finance data because we're also considering what portion of a library's financial resources are dedicated to these types of programs and how we can support them. Finally, we're exploring the systems libraries are using to track and report their inventory and collections. So that's a quick look at our project. As I mentioned before, the primary intent is advocating for school libraries. The data and insights from this project can be used as a tool by school librarians to support budget and material requests, indicate staffing needs, and to inform training and professional development. We hope making this data available and usable will empower school librarians as decision makers and increase their understanding of how their school or district exists within the school library landscape. As I mentioned, just this week, we sent out a survey to collect some staff data. That's going to be open until Friday, October 14th. So school librarians, please keep your responses coming and feel free to contact me if you have any questions. In November, we are also launching a networking group specifically addressing the application of data in school libraries. The first meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, November 16th at 3:30, and you can sign up for that through L2. Additionally, we're preparing for the 2023 library certification process, where we'll again be asking some questions specifically for school libraries. We're developing some tools and resources to help school librarians prepare for that so that they're better equipped to answer those questions. And finally, last but not least, we're building a database to store all of our data and hope to have a preliminary dashboard tool ready to share some of that data sometime early this winter. Thanks again for your time today. As was mentioned previously by Mary, I will be at ILA and IL both presenting some of the findings from this project. The poster session at ILA will just be a quick hour and a half, and then there's actually a program session at the IL conference in November. So I look forward to seeing you all there. Please feel free to contact me if you have any questions or concerns. Thanks.
Thank you, Jeanette.
Yeah, thank you.
Anybody have questions for Jeanette? We're really at the beginning of this, but we think it's going to be a really, really important tool, and we, we're going to, we have committed to maintain and update this information because having to recreate it like this is not easy or quick. So
Carolyn has a question.
I did have one question.
Yep.
Just anecdotally, from talking to my school members and from talking to other librarians, like at the recent ARSL conference, it seems to me that a lot of school teachers are creating their own in-room libraries. And I think they're doing that. I mean, I don't know, but anecdotally, I think they're doing that because the staffing and the finances available to the library itself are lacking. So these teachers are going out and buying their own books and creating their own libraries, which is counterproductive
Right.
to financing anything anyway.
Right.
So I'm wondering if there's a way to capture how much of that is going on and how much I also see teachers are not sending their students to the libraries in the schools when the libraries are available. And I think those are two impacts on library usage in schools that, reflect negatively on the libraries. And then there's this
Right.
ongoing problem. Well,
Just
nobody
keep-
uses
it
the
just
libraries,
Cascading,
yeah,
right, I
exactly.
know, yes, it's true, and right, and that's why we need to get a good picture so we can,
Right, it seems like the question needs to be broadened a little bit to include what the rest of the educators in those facilities are doing regarding print or e-material access.
right, and also what the administrators are doing.
Well,
Yeah.
Deidre, if I can speak to this just a little bit,
Yep,
I
sure.
just because I've already reviewed just the staff survey that we've sent out. Like I said, we've been collecting for 3 days now, and exactly what you're describing, we already have received messages from both librarians and administrators telling us their stories about what is happening. Do they have classroom libraries? Do they have a library with no staff, so classroom teachers are responsible? So I think even though the main focus so far has been quantifying a lot of this, hours per day, number of staff, things like that, it has expanded as the project has gone on to include more qualitative and other types of considerations. Do you have I was contacted by a school who said they have a partnership with their public library. I was contacted by a private school that has a partnership with a public library. So there's all kinds of very unique and individual situations. And, I had a phone call with a librarian who explained to me that, really in her district, what's happening is it's just whatever needs are there are what's being met. So, education is different it's unique in every district, in every building, in every district. So we're aware that it's going to take more than just, how many people do you have and what are their credentials to really figure this out. So I think we've started at district level data so far. We've been trying to look at things just at that level. And now we are able to expand that and really dig into what's happening in each school, based on your location. Are you, one of the findings I'm going to share in my poster session is that we've identified that in school libraries that are located in cities. Now that's classified by the National Center for Education Statistics, but if your school is located in a city, you're less likely to have a certified staff member than if you are located in a suburb or a rural school and several other types of locations. So that was kind of surprising to me. I didn't really realize that was a trend. So, some of the staff data that we're getting now is going to give us even more information, and we'll be able to refine those findings and really understand how to better provide support for people who are overseeing multiple schools. I had one person contact me, she oversees 10 schools. So how do we effectively support those librarians? And then, it's funding, it's collections, it's access, it's everything. So there's a lot that goes into it. And I appreciate that everybody is aware of that.
Great, thank you, Jessica. I mean, Jeanette, I'm looking at Jessica, sorry.
No, thank you. Thanks for letting me speak to that. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Well, stay tuned on this one too. It's I think it's going to be a great, as I said, an important tool. A lot of comments in the chat about, some horror stories. Okay, we are now going to run through pretty quickly, briefly, I should say, just some updates on a lot of the Rails services that that may have been touched on a little bit. And we're going to start with Joe, who's going to talk about the EDI initiative and the cohort, I think.
Good morning, everyone. Again, yes, just taking a few minutes to share just a few plans related to our EDI work as we look at the months ahead. Most of you are probably aware of the Rails EDI learning cohort that we promoted over the summer and accepted applications for. The cohort is actually going to start, that's just a couple weeks from now, and will include around 40 members or so from across our membership who will be part of monthly sessions that are going to run through the spring of 2023. As with all things in Rails, we always, of course, want any services or programs to be inclusive of a very broad and diverse membership. So to that end, we're very pleased with the makeup of this cohort. And just to share a few bullet points of this group, and I know there's at least a few people in the member update names that I see that are going to be part of our cohort. We do have about 40% coming from non-suburban libraries, so really capturing our libraries across the Rails service area. As we expected, most of the cohort participants are from public libraries, but we do have at least a couple school librarians that will be part of this cohort, and several academic librarians. Many different job functions. This is not a cohort made up of just library directors or just library managers. We have those who are catalogers, instruction librarians, early literacy librarians, teen librarians, et cetera, et cetera. So good representation across kind of the scope of job functions in our membership. And of course, we wanted good representation across race and ethnicities. We know that all voices are needed to be part of this important discourse. We feel that we do have good representation where that is concerned. Our intention is for this to be, of course, an annual cohort, not just a one-shot thing. And while this first year cohort is really focused on learning and foundational concepts of EDI, specifically in this cohort, a lot of the applicants that we have and that are participating indicated that they really have had not very much, if any, training or education around EDI. This won't necessarily be the approach for future cohorts. It could have a very different look in year 2, year 3, but we do want this to be something immersive each year that we are able to offer to our membership. So stay tuned on that, and we look forward to sharing more about this cohort as it gets going. Another project that we'll be working on in the months ahead is EDI presenter programming directory. As many of you know, Rails has an EDI board committee that was formed a couple of years ago that is made up of not only Rails board members, but also staff from our member libraries. And this directory was one of the ideas that came out of one of the subcommittees of this board committee. If any of you belong to any listservs, you know that probably one of the most common uses of any listserv is asking the question, who do you know that does X, Y, or Z, right? So what we'd like to do as it relates to EDI is to build a directory that's really focused on a combination of gathering individuals and organizations who might provide education in the EDI sphere, which could include staff training, but also educational programming for the community. Furthermore, we want to support libraries who would like to bring in speakers and programmers who represent a variety of identities in an effort to really diversify the voices who are doing the work for both staff and their communities. And that will be another aim for this directory. While we don't have a firm timeline for the rollout of this directory, we would expect that it would be around the same time as the new Rails website in the months ahead. And as members, you'll not only have the opportunity to use the directory to find potential speakers and programming, but also to contribute names, organizations that you think would be a good addition to the directory. We really hope that it will help grow this into a very useful resource for our member libraries, regardless of where they are located. And then finally, while the EDI learning cohort specifically is a great opportunity for, of course, those members that are going to be participating and their affiliated libraries, we do want to continue offering learning opportunities around EDI for the entirety of our membership. So in the months ahead, we're looking at programs that will focus on, among other things, crafting gender inclusive services, how to conduct diversity audits of your collection, communication across general divides. Those are just a few of the topics that we're working on, among others that we will pursue as we get into winter and spring months. So that is what I wanted to share with you today. I think at this point, we're just going to go through these updates and then give the opportunity to hear any comments or questions at the end. So I'd like to pass things off to Ann Slaughter, talk about Find More Illinois.
Thanks, Joe. Good morning, everyone. So I'm going to talk about Find More Illinois, which is at its core an interlibrary loan platform that brings together the holdings of all participating libraries that have various catalogs into a single web-based and publicly searchable platform that allows for direct patron access as well as staff mediation and management of requests. This is a service model that in many other states is and has been for decades, in some cases, indispensable to statewide library resource sharing operations. Here in Illinois, it's a little bit of a newer concept in practice. And it was originally known as the Overlay Project, which was a vision that Deirdre brought to Rails when she first started. So she is seeing it out. Today, it has developed into a suite of services, and it's a robust way for libraries of all types and sizes across Illinois to share their resources with each other. As Deirdre mentioned earlier, we've been growing fast this year. There are now 55 participating libraries and counting, which is almost double where we were at this point a year ago. It's libraries of all sizes. They're now sharing their materials and enhancing their own patron services with Find More Illinois. Some of our newest libraries include Skokie Public Library, Oswego Public Library, as well as all 6 libraries in the Pinnacle Consortium. We also have the UIC Daily Library participating as a lender. And many K through 12 schools are signing on right now, which they're finding to be a great way to get resources for their students at minimal cost for many of the reasons that have already come up this morning. So if you join before July, we have a really great incentive program running right now. All one-time setup fees are completely waived for any library that joins. And we won't be doing any billing of annual fees until July, no matter when you join. Typically billing starts when you go live. We also offer MARC records, OCLC borrowing, and we have plans to expand to also provide seamless out-of-state interlibrary loan via that same platform. So you can join whether your library has its own standalone catalog software or if you're a member of a shared catalog or LSAP. And we can get you connected no matter what kind of ILS software you have. So again, any Illinois library, system member library of any type or size is welcome to join or to ask questions about how it might look for you. And if your library doesn't have any catalog software at all, we are also putting together a low-cost option for you to join Find More Illinois and receive fully featured and supported ILS software as a part of your package for participation. And this fall, to help support all of this, we're excited that we have a new colleague joining Rails on the Find More Illinois team to help us grow and enhance this suite of services. That's the consortial services supervisor that Deirdre mentioned earlier. And we hope to be filling that position very, very soon. So we're clearly excited about this collective of Illinois library resources. Find More Illinois really brings together the value of our participating libraries' efforts and collections into a greater whole, and then that's for the direct benefit of Illinois residents. And there's value in it for any type or size of library, and because it's completely free for the next 9 months, it's a fantastic time to jump in. So if you are interested in learning more, please visit findmoreillinois.org to get information. You can search the holdings, as well as watch testimonial videos from some of our participants. We at Rails are always happy to answer questions. We can demo the software for you, and or we can provide a formal quote on what your annual costs would look like, and get you started on the process of joining. So if you would like to get in touch, there is contact information for the team in the footer of findmoreillinois.org, or you can always reach out to me directly. We have contact information for all Rails staff on the Rails website. And I am seeing that there are some questions in the chat. In the interest of time, I'm going to pass this right over to Nancy. But if we have time at the end, I can answer questions, and I will also save the chat, and we'll be happy to follow up with people directly. So with that, I will pass it to Nancy.
Hello, everyone. Word Language Cataloging Services program from Rails. So I talked to you about this before, so many of you might be already know about this program, but I would like to talk briefly about what this program is in case if you are not aware of this, and then I can give you an update on this program. So if your library is looking for help cataloging materials, especially word language cataloging or original cataloging, Rails can help you meet your cataloging needs through our word language cataloging services program. This is a centralized cataloging support program to provide original cataloging and word language cataloging for Illinois libraries. We can access libraries of all types and sizes, from the small school library to the largest academic library for your cataloging needs. There is no charge for libraries to use this service because this service is made possible by a special grant from Illinois State Library. So we launched this program in January 2022. Many of our members already use this service and have shown great interest in this program. We received many positive feedbacks from the participants. Many of the participants commented that this was a huge help to receive full level MARC records, especially for items they cannot read themselves. Some commented that they are happy that Rails is providing this much needed services for our libraries. We also identified this program is helping Rails and our members to advance our equity, diversity, and inclusion work in library collection. Because this program helps libraries provide a better service to previously underserved groups who have not had access to materials in their native languages. I know some libraries don't like to buy word language materials if there are no records in OCLC. I believe that is a huge hindrance to access to information. So we are here to help. Now you don't have to limit our patrons' access to information because this service covers all languages. Yes, I mean all languages that are part of your library's regular collection. We are not an expert on all languages by in any means. If you are not familiar with in any languages or formats, we outsource cataloging. So the eligible formats of this service include most print and physical AV materials. We do not cover electronic resources, digital collections, or special collection materials. Regarding your local practices in the records, now we can accommodate your local practices into the bibliographic records. Recently, I worked with CCS Consortium and established a workflow to adapt their local practices in the record. Now, their members can get the full bibliographic records with the local practices, but they have to mention that when they request this service. We are happy to work with other consortium or standalone libraries of any types and size to create a workflow based on your local practices. So in that way, you don't have to do extra work once you get the full record from us. So far, we received requests from multi-type libraries. So the cataloging request load was kind of moderate. In the last few weeks, I haven't received that many requests. So send us more materials. We are happy to meet your cataloging needs. And you can either send us actual item to Rails, or you can send us surrogates for cataloging. Surrogates means we can catalog using scanned images or photocopies of materials. If you send us actual physical items, you can use Rails delivery service, as you know. It is very easy to use, and we will supply full level bibliographic records to your items. Regarding the turnaround time, it varies. Usually it is approximately 4 to 6 weeks. And also it depends on the volume of materials you send it to us and the relative difficulty of the cataloging to be performed. If you need faster service, I would recommend you to send us surrogates. This would save us a lot of time in shipping. So you can find all the guidelines and procedures on how to request this service on our website. So I can post a link on the chat. And you can always contact me anytime, and I am happy to help you. So send me an email, contact me, and yeah. Thank you, everyone. I think I don't see any questions. Now it's time for Joe again. He'll be talking about continuing education.
Thank you, Nancy. I know Joe again. Okay, so continuing education, as you know, over the last 2+ years, we've been almost exclusively offering our continuing education online for quite obvious reasons. But starting this past summer, we have been starting to put some in-person events on the calendar. We've offered workshops in LaSalle, and just this past week at our office in Burr Ridge, and also up in Barrington at the Barrington Public Library. And then coming up in November, we'll be offering workshops in the Peoria area, Quad Cities, and western suburbs. And there'll be some details shared in the next week about those. Given our size and the challenges that many staff have always had in getting away from the library and traveling to attend CE, I expect that a good majority of our CE opportunities will continue to be offered online. This is really the way for us to be most inclusive and reach as many members as we can. However, we do recognize that certain learning opportunities, particularly those that are maybe more of a workshop format, don't necessarily lend themselves really well to an online format. We also know that in-person continuing education events allow for a networking component. Obviously, a lot of you are there in Coal Valley doing that today. And that, again, that networking component that I think is really important for a lot of people is, again, difficult to replicate in a Zoom environment. So it's our intention really to continue offering CE in both formats as a means to meet the needs of our members wherever they might be. But again, we know and recognize the convenience that we have with Zoom and being able to record when the schedule just doesn't work for you. So I do just want to take a moment. I thought I would share just share some of the upcoming things for this fall, if I could, one moment. So if you want to just make this a Rails day and avoid any work that might be waiting for you, you can this afternoon at 1 o'clock attend our academic library marketing webinar. And then, as you could see, and all of these should be in L2, and we've run in eNews. We have some programs later this month that will focus on grant writing. We have a program that's focused on really, I guess, future-proofing your library. And then later in October into November, we have a 2-part session for trustees. These will be held on Saturday mornings on those 2 dates, and they'll really focus on both what the role of the board member is and, well, perhaps more importantly, isn't, and also how to run a more effective board meeting and some sort of parliamentary procedure. Looking ahead then to November, that's when we do have a few customer service workshops. And as I said there, those are the locations, general locations. We'll have those details in eNews next week for you. And then later on, workshop focused on job description writing, and in December, early December, webinar on the role of library staff in crafting a gender inclusive future. So those are just some of the things that we'll be offering the months ahead, and then obviously continuing on into calendar year 2023. I will just also share that it is our intention as well to offer, again, our CE event grants that information should be shared later in October, but it's been a way for libraries and networking groups and our consortia to get funding to help support the great CE that they want to execute and offer their membership, and by extension, then our membership. And again, by the end of October, there should be more details on that. So those are just a few things related to continuing education. At this point, I think I will turn things over to Jessica, who's going to talk about Explore More Illinois.
Thanks, Joe. So as you may know, Explore More Illinois is our online cultural and recreational pass for all Illinois public libraries. Rails pays the platform fee, so there's no additional cost for Rails members or for the attractions who are participating in the program. And I'm happy to report that this is the longest continuous stretch of active service we've had for Explore More Illinois since we started in April of 2019. So I hope that continues. Currently, we have 411 libraries participating in Explore More Illinois. And this year we've had 60 unique attractions participate in Explore More Illinois. Those numbers fluctuate because of seasonal attractions, but yeah, we've reached 60 attractions this year. This summer, we were really excited to add some minor league baseball teams across the state. And we also had our first professional sports team in the Chicago Red Stars, who play in the National Women's Soccer League. Over the past few months, we've added new attractions across the state, including the DuPage Children's Museum in Naperville, the Chicago History Museum, Tinker Swiss Cottage Museum in Rockford, the Cache Bayou Outfitters in Ulin, and the Governor John Wood Museum, or I'm sorry, the Governor John Wood Mansion in Quincy. So we're really trying very hard to have attractions statewide. This spring and summer, we had an attractions contest for our member libraries. We asked library employees to submit attractions, and any attraction that joined Explore More Illinois, that library received an entry into a raffle for free lunch for their staff. Catherine Barnett at Chillicothe Public Library was our winner, and the staff at Chillicothe just had their lunch provided by the Quipu Group, which runs our ePass software for Explore More Illinois. Another thing that we're really excited about with Explore More Illinois is our community college pilot program. We really want to reach out to community colleges for a few reasons. One, it's just a chance to work with a population that might not be using their public libraries. And two, this is also a way that we can reach the unserved population in Illinois, as almost everyone can get a library card through their community college. So last spring, we added our first community college, and that was Illinois Central College in Peoria. That went well, and we just started working with Lincoln Land Community College in Springfield. In addition to adding the community colleges to Explore More Illinois, the community colleges also provide an attraction for Explore More Illinois. Illinois Central College added their theater department to our offerings, and we're working with the culinary department at Lincoln Land Community College to provide an offer to Explore More Illinois users. As always, if you have any questions about Explore More Illinois or you're interested in joining, you can go to our website, which is exploremoreillinois.org, and you can email me directly, or you can email info@exploremoreillinois.org to get more information. On our website, we also have an attractions form. So if you know a contact in your community that you think would be a great fit to be a partner in the program, you can fill that out, and I will reach out to the attraction to see if they're interested in joining. I'm going to, and if you have any questions, please feel free to use the chat, and I can answer. Oh, that's great, Monica. Anderson Japanese Gardens has been one of our most popular attractions this year, so I'm glad that you really enjoyed it. But yeah, feel free to leave questions in the chat and I can respond to you, or you can reach out to me directly. And I think Layla's next.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to talk about deals and discounts. And as Dee mentioned earlier, Rails members saved over $1 million through deals and discounts in fiscal year 22. And this is where economies of scale really come into play. We have about 1,300 libraries in Rails. And if we look at the schools by building, we have over 3,900. So negotiations are based on this potential, but it's really the participation of our libraries that are bringing success. And I just, thanks to all of you and your support, the program is rapidly growing. And it's not just about the money. It's also about the connections. And many of our deals are the results of requests, suggestions, and feedback from our members. And this has resulted in benefits for all in terms of both the discovery of quality resources as well as savings. If you want to get more information about pricing and the deals and discounts right now, you can go to the Rails website, to the page, and log in using your L2 email and password. And we keep this behind a password because the pricing information is intended for our Rails members only. You will see new deals and active renewals at the top of the page. And you can also find access to free trials if they're available. We currently have about 60 deals and discounts for all library types, and I'd like to just quickly highlight a few right now. BrainFuse is one that we introduced this summer. It includes 3 products. Help Now is an online tutoring and study suite that is designed for patrons of all ages, and it features on-demand, one-on-one live homework, online live homework help with BrainFuse tutors. And additionally, there is live FAFSA assistant for any of you who have had the pleasure of filling out one yourself or helping your patrons. 2 other products in that suite are Job Now, which of course obviously helps people with their job search, and Vet Now, which provides guidance for veterans and their family. BrainFuse is offering a discounted pricing to new members, but they're also incorporated a loyalty discount to current customers, as the pricing after the first couple years is based on usage. And they serve over 70 Illinois libraries. Creative Bug is another resource. It's a craft education hub. Patrons have access to thousands of classes to learn craft techniques, and this can also be a great tool for programming. This discount is available to new members, and then current members can opt into the discounted pricing if it's lower at their renewal. We have over 60 Rails libraries that subscribe to Creative Bug. One that resource we introduced earlier this year is called Lote Online for Kids. It's an online database that contains over 1,350 digital picture books in over 45 world languages. We have 20 libraries or so that currently subscribe, and participation for this one is growing quickly. We've been offering webinars every few months to learn more about this resource. Another one I'd like to point out is Udemy. This is an online learning platform that provides instruction for adults who want to upskill for a new job, advance in their current profession, deepen a personal interest. They have more than 17,000 video-based courses in business, technology, software, personal development, and more than 4,000 of the courses are taught by instructors in their native language, mainly Spanish, French, German, Japanese, Portuguese. So we have nearly 20 libraries currently subscribing, and I really expect to see this number grow as more libraries discover it and the potential savings for this type of resource in their library. We do have an upcoming webinar on Udemy. It is on November 2nd, and you can register for that via the L2 events calendar. I wanted to mention 2 upcoming renewals. The Swank annual movie license renewal is happening. The renewal begins on January 1st, and this license allows unlimited showings of thousands of movies and also includes materials to help you promote them. We have 150 libraries currently participating in the Rails Group purchase. You can renew, or if you're not participating yet, you can sign up via the online form, which is accessible through the deals and discounts page. That form will be active beginning on November 1st, and you will need to submit that by November 30th, and then you will get your license in January. And finally, Book Browse for Libraries is a reader's advisory resource that features book recommendations and book club resources. We have about 15 libraries that participate in that, and there is contact information on the deals and discounts page if you'd like to join it. If you are going to be renewing, we will reach out to you via email later in October. We're currently working on several others, we are also exploring resources and really better ways to expand our offerings for the K through 12 market. I also wanted to mention that we appreciate that when you are billed through Rails for the resources when this is available, it's really helpful in oversight on the pricing for the resources. And it's also a really good tool for quantifying the monetary value of the deals and of the program in general. So again, I just want to thank you so much for your support and enthusiasm for the Deals and Discounts program. Of course, anytime reach out to me if you've got questions. And I think it's time to turn this back over to Dee.
Thank you, Layla. Thank you, everybody. Very impressive array of things going on. I think there's been, I've seen questions and comments in the chat, but anybody has any questions or comments right now, this is the time. Anything on Zoom or here in the room in Coal Valley? Yes.
Just for Explore More Illinois, and this may be dependent on you getting another communications person in, but it'd be really helpful if there was some prepackaged social media announcements when you're adding new attractions or adding certain categories of attractions. I just don't have time to put it out there.
Sure. Did you hear that, Jessica? I imagine you did.
No, I didn't hear. I said I heard something about new
Okay.
attractions, but
A request for some prepackaged social media information, some particularly announcements when you add new attractions and, ways of publicizing those attractions. Did I capture that?
Yeah, turnkey.
we have started promoting it. Anytime we have a new attraction, it has been going out on social media. That's been in the last 2 months or so. Let me see if there's a better way that we can get that out to everybody. And we've also been putting it on the Rails website too when we have some new attractions, but let me work with my team and see if we can get that so it's more visible.
Thank you for that suggestion.
Oh, and it's always in the e-news too when we have new attractions too.
Thanks, Jessica.
Sure.
Anybody else? Any other questions, comments? If not, this is time to share your library news. And there's got to be news. Creston Dement is starting to build a new library next spring. That is tremendous. Congratulations, Christy.
So this library is fine free.
Oh, great. That is wonderful. Silvis is fine free now, if you didn't all hear that. That's really great. It's such a removing a huge barrier, especially for kids. Katie, I'm sorry.
150th anniversary of the Rock Island Public Library.
All right. You were a very early library, right? Isn't that well? Yeah.
First to open.
First to open.
Not to organize.
Yeah. We have a question from Katie Duclos about what was the Unileaf database called? It's not Unileaf.
Udemy,
It's
I
new
think.
to me.
Udemy.
New to me.
You to me.
You to me. Udemy. It's in the chat. Let's see. Let's see what else was here. Milledgeville is expanding the district to include the rest of the school district, hopefully, and a 100th anniversary. Yes, Gail presents Udemy, Udemy. You're welcome. Ida is celebrating 140 years in February and was added to the Illinois Centennial Library list. That's great. Congratulations, Mindy and Ida. Did I miss anything? Emily is speaking into my brain from via Zoom. Other news, comments? Questions? All right, well, that's great. I think then that right on time. Take that, Mary Witt. Thank you all for coming. Thanks, for tuning in. This is my last Rails member update, as far as I know. So it's been a pleasure, and I hope to see you at various events, especially ILA. So with that, I will adjourn the member update. Thank you. Bye-bye.